we'll kick off. That's good to have everyone. It's third time lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. So thanks for having an interest in the financial health of your club by joining us tonight. As I said earlier, before we kick off, we're just going to talk about the fact if there's anything that you want to question or ask, probably just talk up. I might miss your text in the box, so just talk up, and I hope that we do create a little bit of conversation around this night tonight. So what again, as I said, thank you very much for taking charge of the funding or looking at funding in your community. So what, just before I go, what are you seeing? Are you seeing my full screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know why I've changed from my, hang on, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to have to, it wasn't third time lucky. Right, that's it. Okay, so we know the importance of funding. Healthy communities are important, and certainly funders love the fact that you're talking health and you're getting into your community. Outcomes of fundraising and funding will provide sustainability for your organisation. I think we all realise that. And there is lots of funding opportunities out there. In fact, there's some funders just crying out to give their money away. It's understanding who those funders are and what the criteria is. So there are plenty of opportunities. But what the crux of this session tonight is about really understanding how important it is to plan, putting some planning in place ahead of time. So that whole old cliche saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. It's absolutely right in this case. So we need to understand what our needs are, wants, and put some planning into our funding so that we can make things sustainable for the next people in line or people we're going to delegate to, or how we are going to look for the future for our club. So let's have a little look at what we're going to cover today. Planning and preparation for successful applications. Now, I do know that what everyone wants to know, and we did have a little discussion about, is where we can get the biggest funding we can for whatever what we ever need to maintain or renew or buy or put a program in place for. So that goes without saying. But we are going to look at how we can plan and prepare for those applications. So we've got a lot of understanding of what's coming up and how we can, who the funders are and what we can do to make sure our funding is successful. So we're also going to do a little bit of brainstorming as to the needs and the wants of your club. So sometimes, and it happens in the majority of clubs because we're all pretty time poor, is that when a need comes up, as opposed to a want, something that we need right now, it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Where do we find a funder? Then we'll have a brief look at the application process. Like most things, it becomes a lot simpler once you do it a few times, especially as you get to know the funders. And then we are going to assess the funding opportunities in your region and have a look at that. So with that in mind, before you attempt any funding applications, you really need a plan. And I'm saying it for the third time already in the past 2 minutes. Your committee should look at creating a wish list of the things they would like to achieve or purchase over a set period. And they should be divided and prioritised up into needs and wants. Often funding for events can be easily worked out using a calendar. So we're going to look at how you can put your funding needs into a calendar, and it certainly will be an annual calendar, which can be extrapolated over 3 to 5 to 10 years. So we really want to after prioritising your needs, we need to look at what the budgets are. So when you're looking at what your needs, immediate needs or wants are, as an important part of the funding application is a budget, and a really good budget's going to secure your funding a lot more than if it's clear and you've put a bit of work into it. It's really going to be important for your funder to see that, and it's going to make the job a lot easier to get through, or the application to be passed a lot easier. So the budget is going to be linked to your plan. Then we're going to look at creating a timeline, because the approval process can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. So we need to understand a timeline that's going to go into that planning. Then, as I talked about your budget, it's a good way to manage that budget is to link it to your plan, and we're going to look at an easy way to do that. All good so far? Yep. Okay. Wants and needs are two completely different things, but realistically, while we're making a plan, or we've got our planning group or our committee together, let's look at the plan for the long term. So there's quite a lot of needs there, as well as the nice things to have, such as wants. And I've put up a little screen here to talk about what I think the real needs of your community would be: facility maintenance, equipment, admin support, port grooming and cleaning. That's something we sometimes put aside, and we end up finding that our courts are getting worn out far too quickly. So that I see as a real need. But we have, on the other side, things like comfortable seating, which Hayden's got in his Silverdale clubhouse. But some clubs don't even have a clubhouse or a meeting space. So that's something that's so big that it'd be nice to have, but their need is just to keep their tennis courts going. Upgrade of change rooms, we really need to put that into our plan to understand that when people come, they're going to love being in our clubhouse instead of being in a cold, dirty change room. And there's also all the other niceties. But what we want to look at now is that funding and fundraising should be something that's part of your long-term plan as well. So just outlining, having an understanding what your needs and what your wants are, and then thinking about how you can complement them with a bit of fundraising to go with it. So what I want to think about now is we're here together, and I'd like us to, and I meant to ask you to bring a little bit of paper and a pen with you. So if you have got something easily accessible, grab a pen and a bit of paper. And what we're going to do right now is just go through what your club's needs are right now. What are the immediate things in the next year to 2 years you really need? And what are the wants that might not be needed, but something that would be really nice to have? Just like this past slide. So breaking down, outlining your wants and what you really do need. So I'm going to just give you a couple of minutes to write those down. Then we're going to come together and we're going to have a little conversation around and see what, if any of our needs cross over, and I'm pretty sure there must be a few of them that cross over. But also remember what your club might want that you could put in the plan at a further date. So we've got 2 minutes to do that. And any questions, shout out. I'm happy to help while we're brainstorming. I think I heard already that court resurfacing was a really big, a big area, certainly for Burnside Park. So that's going to be high on your list, but it depends how many courts. Are they all of them? Are they 2 at a time? What are you thinking? So that's also good to understand. Okay.
Yes.
Right, we're ready.
For the coach for club needs, we were thinking about, apart from comfortable seat to provide a good environment, we also think about the safety as well, because sometimes members could be playing in the club until nighttime, especially in winter. It could be really dark. So we were also thinking about having a cameras here in the club as well. So yeah, so the members knows that there's camera, or whoever wants to do anything bad in the club, they know that the camera's recording, just a safety issues for the club. And of course, yeah.
So that's high on your list of needs, to make sure that there's safety within your club area, so your players come along and they know that they're going to be secure with everything when they're playing and leaving their equipment on the side of the court, etc.
Yeah, so camera, yeah, the camera was part of it that K9 has been talked about for the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also we were thinking about others, but usually club will have the alarm already for the facility. But that's for the facility. For the tennis court, doesn't have the alarm because it's outdoor. So the camera might help a little with that.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your main need that came up for you? That's key to your area? Yeah.
Yeah, at the moment, yeah, and maybe the sensor light around the tennis court, when the main light of the court turns off, the members can have the sensor light around the way out. Yeah.
Yeah. What any wants there, Tina? What was something that would be nice to have for your club? So we're thinking.
I'm also sorry. We were also thinking, so since the last time I've been to West Harbour, the seat was wooden seat. If we can replace or maintain the seats more comfortable for the members, and even have a big umbrella in summers, that would be great too, because summers in Auckland could be very hot as well. And also maybe a little tennis table in the club for the members to and have a little bit entertainment inside the club as well. Those things would be great for those members to feel comfortable in the club. Yeah.
So those are absolutely great examples of needs and wants, something you can survive without, but would be nice to have.
Yeah.
The wants and the needs, you feel the camera is important.
Yeah.
Shailesh, is there something? What did your list look like?
I think we've got three needs. Definitely, we have to look at court resurfacing at some point coming up. So that will be number one.
How many courts?
Our second, three. Three
Flexi
Play at the moment, like coming up to 20 years old. Yeah.
You've got 3 courts at your club. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Second thing would be we have to somehow engage a professional coach. I know there's a shortage, but that's definitely high on the list in terms of needs, because we are not running a junior program at the moment. And I would think that, I know on your slide you had the tennis balls as a want, but I actually think it's a necessity, because without tennis balls we can't actually play. So I've got tennis balls, just the regular cycle on as one of our priorities, as a need.
That's great. Those are perfect. Any particular wants for the future?
Yeah, so in terms of wants, we need to replace our lino in the kitchen, because it's been tested for asbestos and come back positive. So we know we have to do that at some point. And we've got some brick pavers just sort of at the bottom of our stairs before you access the courts, which are coming loose. And that's becoming a health and safety issue for a few of our older members. So in terms of a want, we would want to, I guess, do some landscaping or concreting to make that a bit safer.
Right.
So that's probably on the want side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to get your idea, because we're going to move on to a plan and to see where the wants and needs go in that. So who's next? Gillian, we've got you down for sure. For how many courts?
Yeah, we've our whole complex is 10 courts, of which 4 are Astro. So we need to replace or upgrade the 4 Astro over the next few years. So that's my need. My want is some sun umbrellas.
Okay, great. Who have we got next? Hayden, have you got a big list there?
I do have a long list, and we actually just had a committee meeting last week and went through a lot of it. But the primary ones for the needs at the moment are a roof for the clubhouse. It's currently leaking in multiple positions. Built by volunteers 30 years ago, probably never been looked at since, except for a paint job to try and nurse it through a little bit longer. It's currently leaking. Fence around the entirety of the tennis courts was, probably not as good as it needed to be, and it's been sort of doctored to last a bit longer. Coach development, I actually think it's the priority and should be a priority of all clubs to, because without good coaches or engagers, particularly if you're running junior programs, and as Shailesh, sorry if I got their name wrong, sort of alluded to, without for a junior program to be successful, we really need great coaches and a club manager / admin function. So with a increasing administrative and legislative environment, for those that rely on their club for their livelihoods, which I'm one of them. I have multiple hats just for those on the call. Can't necessarily always rely on volunteers or a committee to make sure things are happening in the right space. So you've kind of got to, cross those boundaries and have consistent leadership out of the club and administrative support, so that so that the committee and the club is supporting those that are supporting it. So those were my needs. But yeah, and soon it's more courts, because we're currently out of room, both on court after school every day with 4 courts. They're all full every day, and every weekend during summer 4 courts are chocker. So we currently spill over into a local golf club's courts and talking to schools and or consuming other clubs' courts.
Right, that's a really good problem to have. Okay, so what I'm getting to understand is that there are needs and wants, or getting you guys to really think about looking at needs and wants, because if you're going to put some planning into your funding, and I suggest, as I said earlier on, that's the crux of what we do, so that we've got a plan in place that's stored in a place that's accessible to the people that need to be, and you've got some succession around it. So when we talk about resurfacing 4 courts and possibly another 4 courts in 6 years' time, that's in your plan. We're not just thinking, okay, let's do these 4 courts in 2 years' time. Let's plan to what we're going to need, and that's going to be addressed. So we'll move on to having a look at a template for a plan. So what I've got up here is a Google Doc spreadsheet, and I'm not a spreadsheet guru at all, but I can use it quite easily like a table. But as I've got better at learning the basics of a spreadsheet, it's been really, really useful. So does everyone see my spreadsheet up here?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, so what we've done here is try to put a few suggestions into the spreadsheet, but on the needs, should be wants and needs, because some of them are wants and some of them are needs, are all the things that I have brainstormed that I did need, like tennis balls annually. We needed them in July because I knew the season started in September and we wanted enough for the start of our season. So that's why I put the need by in July. So I'll go through each column pretty quickly. Column A is all about your wants and your needs. So if you can work out what we've just done into your column and put all your wants and your needs, the tennis nets are really a bit of a need, but if you can see, that's 3 yearly. So I forecast that a little bit ahead of time. Court maintenance, 5 yearly, that's incorrect. It should be 1 yearly, and we should be putting that into our budget, into our funding plan and our budget too. Court light replacement LED bulbs, you would put in column B when you need it by. And I suggest that when you're making, as I said earlier, when you're getting your plan in place, you put it on an annual plan, which can be extrapolated into 5, 3, 2, 1, 10 years, whatever you would like. But while you're doing the job, let's do it properly. So club hub maintenance, 2 yearly, plan for that. Let's put it in there. Put a date by. So each of the columns, obviously amount applied for, amount received, will come and go as you apply and as you receive. You'll see tennis balls annually. We applied for $1,500 worth of tennis balls to the two do-good funders, who obviously they're fictional. We passed a resolution in our meeting in April, and an application was made in May, and the funding still hasn't been approved yet. But if you look down at the Hot Shots program, you'll see best funders, application made April, and the funding was approved June. We could fill that in. Now, once we get to the bottom of column C, we have our total amount applied, and we can see where we were successful or where we were not. So it's having everything in one spot. And if you have a shared drive or some other shared document in the cloud that your key people can get access to, and obviously maybe they're involved in different ways in funding applications or fundraising to add to that, or even, which I haven't put in here, is sponsorship support, which is something else we can touch on briefly before we finish. So really it's first job is understanding your wants, your needs, getting them in a column. I would suggest putting in an annual plan so you know exactly what times of the year, because when you come to look at your funders, they're going to tell you when you can apply, and they're usually at certain times of the year. So it'll give you an idea of exactly when you need it and when you can then put the right sort of funder towards it when you find out the criteria that they around their timing application, and whether it takes 2 weeks or whether it generally takes a good 2 to 3 months. So what we also is really key to, and it helps to attach to your funding plan, is a budget, because without understanding what your costs are, you can't then understand how much to apply for. And it makes sense to have your budgets attached to your funding plan. So if you see along the bottom, the blue one is the page we're on, is the funding plan. And then I've got the tennis balls, tennis Hot Shots program, Love Tennis Open Day, all have a budget attached to them. So what I'm going to do is, it's a great idea to put a budget attached to it. So we're going to look at the budget for the tennis balls in the next slide. But before I go on, is there any questions around this little spreadsheet? It can be as simple or as complex as you want to be if you're a guru at spreadsheets, but it is a really good way to share and provide some futuristic support around your funding plan if you put it in the right place. So everyone, how good is everyone with if they've used a spreadsheet? You can use it as a table. You don't have to use all the functions around it, but I'm sure there's people in your club that are able to do that sort of stuff. So does that make sense as far as I've got to so far?
Yep.
We've done something similar, Ali. We've actually then used that as a summary in our annual reporting to the AGM.
Yep.
So that's another good purpose for this type of document.
Yep. And when you are also applying for funding, you can also throw in what your funding plan looks like as well. Funders love to see that they're open to understanding your finances, and it's up to you. It's probably a bit extreme doing that, but I like the way it's being used because it's a good reporting document and understanding where everyone's at. So the tennis balls, this is a very, very simple income and expenditure is just a good idea to show a funder the complete picture. And we talked a little bit about funders love to see something else being put in the mix. So if you wanted 30,000 to resurface a court, they would love to see that your club is actually fundraised through a raffle or a quiz night or something that your club's funded, or the member fees. So we used to put it out to our members that they paid X amount for the balls to bring it down a little bit for their interclub so they could get cheap balls, but we threw that into the funding application. So we knew that our balls cost $2,000 and our funding application was $1,500, but it also then we could show that to our funders, say this is what we've got and this is what we need it for. And so it's just having a little bit of clarity, and the same would be for any one of your budgets along the spreadsheet. So you can just keep linking it back to the annual funding plan. Right. So we've talked about our wants and our needs. We've talked about putting our wants and our needs in the right place, whether the needs are going to come later next year, whether they are going to be in 3 years' time, whether our courts, we know that we've got 8 courts and we know every 4 years we're going to have to upgrade them because they haven't been upgraded for a while. So you choose your worst and then put the plan in place that in another 2 years' time, the next 4 or however. So it's really thinking planning, not knee-jerk. And each of them's got a budget attached to it. So when we know that we've got our funding application, when we've found our funder, we've got that budget to attach to it. So it gives complete clarity. So we're going to start stepping through the application process. And I'm really excited about this because I previously talked about it in great length, but now I can just show you and you can go through it yourself. So I'm just going to go over it very quickly. We do need, before you fill in your application form, to get all your ducks in a row. And we did quite a bit of talk about planning in that spreadsheet. But now we're going to talk about the actual process and what your needs will be for with the process. So we have this now in a toolkit, and I hope that you might have read one of the 2 Club Matters newsletters that went out showing our new toolkit, which is really, we've got 12 topics coming up in the club's toolkit, and 2 of them have gone live, communications and marketing, and then funding and sponsorship. So I'm going to show you the step-by-step approach in funding and sponsorship now. And if you can get into that system of going through the process, you're going to have all your documents ready and it's going to be easy. And those of us, and I'm sure all of us that are online tonight have made many funding applications, and they get very complicated with the type of documents and how we get them all together. But if we get a system going, it's a lot easier. So I'm excited to show you, apart from all these ducks in a row. Hopefully it comes up to you. Are you seeing that screen?
Yes.
sponsorship and funding. So this is under our club section.
I'm not seeing it. Sorry,
no, Ali, it's just the ducks. We've just got the ducks.
Just got the ducks. Damn it.
They're still in a row, though.
They're still in a row, all swimming solo.
They haven't moved.
They haven't moved. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just try and stop sharing, and I will and try and bring that one, because that's it. This is the exciting part of it, that I'm okay.
Yeah, we're seeing accountability now.
Yeah. So you've moved on to the next one. But I need to stop sharing. And I'm going to have to bring another screen up. I'm sorry about this, guys. See if I can get that up now. No,
Nothing like good technical stuff to make things exciting. Right, let's see if we can get that up. Right. Are you seeing that yet?
Yep,
See that club? Yeah.
love
Club
weekend,
Webpage.
love tennis, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is our club page. Our club toolkit is on the club's page. So when you open that up, we have got 12 different topics. We've collated most of the information, but our lovely Amy is going to start doing her magic to get them online. And this is the one we're looking at, sponsorship and funding. So when you open that up, it gives you an option to go to the application and planning process, which is what we're going to do right now. And this is the step-by-step process that I said I was going to take you through. So when you are starting to write your application fund, this is what we've stepped through that you need. So as far as your club information, as you open up the concertina, it will give you an idea of what you need within your application process, your club certification, at least 2 or 3 people that represent the club that can be contacted. You're either an incorporated society or a charitable organisation, and most of us are incorporated. And your constitution, some funders require you to be able to show your constitution, but not many of them. So that's the first step, is making sure you've got that. Letters of affiliation is looking to your regional body, your national body, to give you some support around that, and obviously that strengthens, or even your regional sports organisation. It strengthens your application. So there's an example of what you could send to your national, regional or association, saying name of sporting organisation. Tennis New Zealand would like to support Burndale Tennis Club in their funding application for courts. It's a well-established club, so it gives you a little bit of an idea of what to do at that stage as far as letters of affiliation, and we stepped through everything for you. So I'm not going to go through and explain this all tonight. It's something that you can go and have a look at. So what you need, if you're GST registered, most of us aren't, so if that case you don't have to worry, but it gives you an idea of what funders look for in that area. Financial reporting, and then accountability, which is huge. We're going to talk about that just now. Application specific documents, a resolution. And if you remember in the planning template, we had a date for when the resolution was passed. Your resolution will go with your minutes, which is within this particular step, and quotes. Now we've got our budgets attached to that planning spreadsheet, so we can get quotes, and usually 2 quotes are what are needed. Contracts if you're applying for salaries or wages for staff. So those are all the specific documents to get you, put you in a row like the ducks. A declaration of authority, a consent to audit sometimes comes, an agreement in terms, so it gives you an idea of what you would need to get. Some do require that, others don't, but what certainly funders like to see is clarity around your finances. If you've got no finances, that's obviously obvious, you need help, but they do like to see, even more so if you've got plenty of money in the bank or got money in the bank, they like that. That's even better. You showed to be quite a prudent financial organisation, and that makes them quite confident about you. So there's nothing wrong with showing that. But they're quite happy to see that stuff, and they're not going to put a mark against you because you've got money in the bank. We talked about information storage. We really want to make sure that what we're doing for long-term planning is going to be succession for someone else. So you don't want to be doing this all your life and then over the next 10 years and have to hand it over to someone else. start delegating now. We've got so many abilities now online, so let's make sure we think of that as well. Cover letter, and then finally, it's important to plan. So don't plan to fail if you fail to plan. So that's our part of our toolkit, which is, I'll let you go through at your own leisure, but it's a consultation area that you can go in. It's got a whole lot of information to help you. So now, because I'm really messed this up, I'm going to have to unshare and go back to my slide again, but I will come back to what I'm circling at the moment, which is links to various funding organisations, with a whole lot of links under that as well. That's that funding plan and budget template. And you can use that however you want, just copy and paste and take what you want out of it, but it's a little bit of a guide for you. So that's our process. Let me undo that and see if I can go back to my slide. I'm not finding it so easily. Oh, here we go. Right, from okay, so we did see a little bit of accountability there. I'd just like to impress upon you that anyone that gives you money, you need to really be aware that you've got to report successfully. If you've put in your application what you're going to do as far as the effect on your community, if it's a lot of them look for what the effect is on the community, that's more and more important. You really need to prove that with photos, with stats around what you've achieved, with some documentation of a record of getting some way towards what you wanted to do. Reporting with a time period is absolutely crucial. Report early if you can, if you get manage to wrap up your program or your event or whatever you've applied for early. Create an evaluation plan. So that's what I talked about early, just when I was saying successful reporting. If you can evaluate against where you were at the beginning and what you've achieved, that's fantastic. Receipts and invoices, I think that goes without saying. And what they do like to see, if you want to go back to them in the future, is a sustainability plan. Where are you going to go with that? Are you just going to keep putting your hand out? Or have you got an idea of another partner you might be able to link with that's going to help you, so you might not be looking for quite so much money from them in future? They love that sort of stuff. Create a relationship with your funder. Quite often they are happy to take a phone call from you. A lot of the regional sports trust funders do like doing that. What funders don't like is having to come back and tell you you haven't filled in the form properly or you haven't given the right amount of documentation. They want to be able to take your application and go through it very smoothly. So if you don't understand anything, you don't feel that you've got everything right or their criteria, go to them and say, how can I make this, how can we make this work? We have a fund called Te Manawa, and many of you may have heard of it through our regional sports trust. They've got so much money they're dying to give away, but they need to know that you're hitting the right criteria. So if you are going to apply for Te Manawa, we'll have a look at criteria just now. Go to them and say, this is what we want to do. What do we do to fit your criteria? Because we're not quite sure that we're going to be doing it. And they'll say, don't bother applying if that's what you want. You want to sun umbrellas for your existing members, no, that can afford to pay fees anyway. That might not cut it, but they will tell you what does. So creating a relationship with your funder is really good. I used to, in the days when chopping down trees wasn't so critical, I used to send them Christmas cards every year, and as well as everything else, to thank them for their year. So we can do that digitally too. So it's those little things that create a relationship. And acknowledge your funders within your community. So if you've got your social media and newsletter, any signage you could put up, let them know that when you're giving them feedback and reporting and doing your accountability. So we come on to funding opportunities come from a variety of places. So where to go? There's no magic list of where to go to, but what part of this whole planning is looking at what's available to you, getting a team together, maybe 1 or 2 of you or 3 of you, take a couple of hours to work out what's available in your region and what the criteria are. So I will share with all of you what I did in my region to find out what the criteria was. I looked at the councils, what the council funding was, local council, regional councils. Our sports trusts are great places, and you'll be able to see really easily on their tabs what their funds are, and they then will tell you criteria. Everyone is different as to what they will fund, how much they will fund, and what dates their funding are. Remember, we talked about making sure you've got the right dates. No point putting your court resurfacing under the Lion Foundation when they only apply once a year, and it's nowhere close to when you might need your application. So it's knowing these. And what I did do, this is what we're talking about, you guys thinking of doing, is making sure you understand who those people are. We'll go through the links just now on our club toolkit, and working out who the funders are, what they fund, what time of the year they fund, how long it takes them to turn around and either grant your application or decline it. So there's lots on Sports New Zealand website. There's charitable foundations, community trusts, lottery grants and gaming, and that was going to link to the funders on my toolkit, but I might have to go out and come back again. So I think this point, maybe we just might have a little bit of conversation around that. I've been rattling on. Does it make sense? Because what I'm going to go and show you a lot of links, but every area is slightly different, especially with those gaming machine, the gaming pokies. They will only fund in their own areas, and they must make sure they've got funding machines, and that's part of their agreement or their contract, is that they give back to their own community. So and again, Te Manawa is I spoke to Sport New Zealand yesterday and said, I know that all the funding that comes out of the regions is, each region by region decides where it goes and the criteria. And Te Manawa is a marvellous funding. I'd really urge you all to have a little look at it. It's mainly to do with engaging with marginalised communities, women that are desperate to get women back into activity, and low income groups. And our tennis clubs, I know Hayden's talking about the fact his courts are really busy, but we have a lot of clubs out there, our courts aren't really busy, and we want to get volunteers in. So if we can diversify the people we reach, we'll be able to look at what they can give us. And most of them really would like to be part of a community, and we can start looking at volunteers. So I guess looking, I love this fund because it makes us look more critically at who we're looking at as far as our tennis community is. And our tennis community can be anyone out there, because we have an amazing sport that anyone can play at any age. So we have to start looking at like that way. I think Te Manawa will be really good at allowing you to understand what the criteria is, that, and certainly your regional sports trust will help you understand how you can gain some money in that direction. Just a little example of that is we have one club that's talking about getting more women into the sport, and they are starting a little program called She Serves, and something like that would be funded by Te Manawa, and that means you're getting some women coming onto your court. So that's an example of one of the criteria for a funder that we're talking about tonight. So yeah, I hand it over to you just a little while before we have a last look at some funding opportunities that we've shown on our website, and we'll go through them just to see what different areas, what might be in your area as well. So can I get some feedback from you guys? I'm sort of sitting here doing all the talking, and I'd love to hear some of your opinions.
The only question I have is, how do you spell Te Manawa, please?
TUMANAWA, I think. So if you go and look at Sport Canterbury, you'll find Te Manawa under the Sport Canterbury website.
Thank you.
Okay. So this list I've got up here with different funding opportunities, where to go. Has anyone investigated many of these, and if so, which ones?
I've been successful with grants from the local council, community trusts.
Right. Okay, awesome.
We've recently, local council, I'm not sure where the likes of the Lion Foundation fit in there, but none of the others. Yeah, but that's probably because we haven't applied.
Okay.
There will be.
Shailesh, where do you guys go when you're looking for your funds?
Yeah, most of our successful applications have come through pub charity, so the gaming machines.
Yep.
As well as NZCT, so charitable foundations. Yeah, we have tried to go through like lottery grants and the councils, even Sport New Zealand, but we haven't been able to really meet the criteria. So I'm finding that we're sort of being a little bit limited as to what we can apply for.
Yep. Just be aware of the gaming machine funding. It's a sinking lid policy in most councils with that. So
yeah,
keep in contact with them while you can, but they're getting less and less ethically agreeable, or people are not so keen in the councils to. But it's a double-edged sword. It does so much good as well.
Because as you say, they're more looking to fund like marginalised groups or youth. Whereas if you're a tennis club looking to, I don't know, paint the tennis club or, do something like that, it's hard to find places that will, meet that sort of criteria.
Yeah, I think again, if you can go for, and if you're a small group anyway, it's hard to get funding. But if you can show that you're putting some sort of funding in place as well, and the councils. There will be places that you can go to. The other thing that is part of this toolkit is sponsorship, and that's maybe something we can have a discussion about too, because that's really our regions, associations and our clubs. I don't think we utilise sponsorship anywhere as we should, because businesses are really keen to be able to increase their range and exposure. So if we can give them an idea of how we can do that, we can get sponsorship too. And if you show sponsorship within your funding applications, that's also strengthens it. Someone else's money coming, and these guys are trying. So yeah, there's lots of conversations around this. So I'm just going to go through making that time to have a look at all the possibilities there, and deciding what you need to apply for and trying to get the criteria. But honestly, to spend 2 or 3 hours getting a table in place where you know who funds within your area, what they fund, how much, when to apply, etc., is something that's going to be a legacy for your club. It obviously changes all the time because they update and change things, but it's the only way if you're going to do. Sorry?
One other thing, Ali, was I've noticed that some agencies only fund once a year.
Yes.
So yeah, again, that's if you don't put it in at the right time, you sort of have to wait 12 months before they fund something else. So that's another consideration.
Yeah, and on that topic, what you would do with that when you're making your funding plan, if they are once a year and they fund to the tune of $10,000, say, you're not going to go and apply for $1,500 worth of tennis balls for them. You're going to make sure you put them on your plan in a spot that you're going to get the best benefit from them. So it's understanding all that stuff, and that gives you the ability to have a little bit more success around maybe the amounts you get, instead of that knee-jerk, oh, one's fine, let's just take this one. So it does involve that planning. But if your gaming machines are coming through, you know the dates, you know the amounts, put them in the right place, the places you really need them. And once you get to know who refuses you, who declines, and who you get, then you really look after them and make sure you do apply and you accountable and your applications are really sweet. They don't want to sit and go through stuff that's too difficult to. They just want to say tick, 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 they can have it. So we need to be able to do that. So I'm just going to finish up by quickly going through those links that we have on our club toolkit. So I'll try and get them.
Ellie, just while you're doing that, so I mean, I'm just looking at some examples that Harbour Sport, which is our area. So there's a long list of the ones that have approved for the schools and clubs and what have you. Do you have examples of the application? So for example, the project names here are Wahine on Water or Pacifica Fit, Ballers Nightclub, After School Program. So these are just some of the project names. So I presume there's like a one-page project definition document that they've used to accompany the application. Do you have an example of that?
Yeah. So they will ask you. They'll ask you and they'll tell you how many words they want. Usually they give you 150 words to explain briefly, and then another bit to elaborate on what your product's about. So it's really key to know, and I can send you, a couple. They all differ, but generally they want to know that you're meeting the criteria and how you're doing that. So certainly can send you through something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, I'm happy to ring Active or Te Manawa and just get them to send me through a couple anyway. Hopefully they would do that. But yeah, there's some decent chunks of money here for stuff. So don't want to go and recreate the wheel if then you've just got to go and tick boxes. So.
They have got money, Te Manawa in Auckland. So just find something there, Hayden, because they're desperate to give it out. There's people just not, and I don't think we're telling the clubs enough. I think we need to, and if you're not getting to paint your clubhouse, you're getting people to come onto your courts. It's going to generate funds anyway. So it's putting some planning in place and deciding what you can do as far as programs, because programs they will fund. So I'm going to see if I can share this, and hopefully I'm going to have to do some. Are we getting that? No. Have you got?
Have you got the website? Yeah.
We've got the website.
Yeah,
so
we're on the webpage. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 3 links here. Now, unfortunately, there was one to who was it? Government. I'll go through them anyway. So that's Sport New Zealand. Does that come up?
Yep.
Yeah, so they've got not a bad site where you application type, club, location, Auckland, purpose.
It says club, I think, somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, club, Auckland, and then funding, just search funding, and it gives you. So that's not a bad little lottery community. So, but all of these will have their criteria. So, but you'll find Trillion. I think they're attached to pokie machines. So unless Trillion is within the Silverdale area, you probably won't apply to you. But that's pretty good. They've got a lot of information there for you to click. So Sport New Zealand, you've probably all been to, but please, that's a great site to go for. Let's see if I can go back. Have we gone back? Yes.
Yep.
Right. So the Tyndall Foundation, we've repeated some of them in here, but they've got quite a few community organisation grant schemes, and that's Community Matters has got different.
It's our local council ones, isn't it? I think the local council boards.
Yeah. So can I go back here? Community Trust, they're great, community trusts, and they've actually outlined the different areas. So we've got Wellington, Oh, here we go. But now, Nuku'ura, I think, oh, that's a community Wellington, but that's not a bad site to go to, community foundations. So what we've tried to do here is get Lottery Grants Boards, is to get most of the bigger organisations that have links to funding, and this is the Department of Internal Affairs for the council areas. They used to have a map in here, and you just clicked on that map and it gave all the funding within your area. We're going to get in contact with them because it's just disappeared this past week, but it does have links to funding information and options and gambling and grants. So lots of information there, community matters. So really it's going through these, and I certainly will get in contact with you once we find out about Department of Internal Affairs, because those community or local council grants were great in there. I don't know why they've taken their map off. It seems to have taken the link. Maybe they're just updating it. But yes, that's basically it. I'll take you back to the front of our, so yeah, funding plan and template here. A template request to local donors, fundraising tips if you're going to fundraise to go with your funding application, fundraising ideas. So just a whole list of things that you can do. We've tried to put together a fair amount of things to allow you to get some ideas. Our sponsorship area is another story, but I think sponsorship is something to have a little think about once you've got past your funding plan and what you need to do with funders. And we'd really love to help you with accessing who the sponsors are, could be in your area, and it's not that difficult to do, and help you get together a proposal, some examples of the proposals and what you'd have to do to report. Research you'd have to do to actually look at who your sponsors might be. But that's another story. I think focus on your funders, and please have a look at our website. And I'm happy to send you what I had put together a couple of years ago in the Nelson area for when we were funding, and I will try and update it and put it on this site as well. And really it's key. Get your wants and your needs, your funding template plan, get them in a row with a year annual, extrapolate them if there's, while you're there doing the job, do it properly, think ahead 3, 5, 10 years. One other thing that we've got coming up, and it'll be on the website another 2 weeks or so, is maintenance. So we've got a maintenance section going in the toolkit, and that'll give you a lot of information around all sorts of things you need to look at as far as maintenance is concerned within your club, and a template for a maintenance plan, which then could link to your funding plan. So we'll just go back to I think I've got it at last. Here we go. Are we back? Yeah. The very end, I think. I've got that shared? No, I haven't shared that. I've got to share you my final slide. There we go. Okay. So I would like, if you, before we finish, if you could just jot down in the notes section just anything that I could help you with as far as what you've heard tonight. Have I made it very complicated? Is it simple enough to understand? What could we do to support you in the next steps with your funding? Not the funding application, the funding, I'm happy to do that, but we need to see some funding planning going into place and understanding what you're going to do for your whole big picture of your club. So yeah, if you please share anything, questions before we finish, but thank you very much for joining us. It often takes multiple applications to secure funding, unfortunately, but that is just a fact. Sometimes you succeed very quickly, other times you have to try a few times. The more you get to know your funders and the funding application, the easier it gets, though. Thank you very, very much for showing an increase in interest in working with your community to increase funding opportunities. So ultimately programs, events, maintenance. And yeah, please, what are your takeaways tonight? What do you need help in? If you could just put that in the comments box, I'd be really grateful. Yeah, and remember both your region, Tennis New Zealand, and your region, they're there to help you. So yeah, reach out and help and ask for help. So I might have a quick whip round quickly before we finish from everyone, just to, yeah, what have you picked up tonight that might be useful to you? I'll start off with Hayden, because I know he's going to be quick.
Is that hassling how much I talk, Ellie?
I knew you'd appreciate that one.
The one that I've been trying to get is to get to know the funders, and to be fair, it's something that I've always just put this aside because it always feels I start and it gets too hard. And I know it's not meant to be too easy, maybe, because it should be a robust process, but we've got to find a way where, I don't know, this is a nice, easy thing to do, and then but if I can get in touch with the funders so that, I don't know, got a personal connection and they almost ring you to apply for funding, I think, because I've got mates that do it with surf clubs and things, that, they effectively work together to achieve those outcomes, rather than somebody sitting down thinking, who should I apply for what?
Yeah. If you have a successful funding plan in place, then you're going to know every year that you're going to be applying, because you just need to look at your last year, or this is the 3-year period and we're applying for that because we've got and once you know your funders and you know the application process, it gets easier and better. It's when one person has to do it now and again, or share it between, and it's like anything. It's like I work with Tournament Planner running tournaments. I use it 3 times a year. I forget every time I went to use it because it's so complicated. Or for me, it was complicated. So if you get this process in place, you know that when you apply to your council for that fund, they're going to give you for Love Tennis, it's the same process. They know you've reported for and that's when it becomes a little bit easier. But I certainly look forward to sharing what I think everyone should do in that table before you even, alongside with your planning around that spreadsheet with what your wants and needs, and on an annual and an extrapolated calendar.
That's great stuff, Ellie. So just thank you again for pulling all of this together on the website and these sessions. So
yeah, thank you. That's great working with enthusiastic people. And Shailesh, sorry.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll definitely be taking away is the budget templates and putting that in for the upcoming season for us, and just putting a better plan together. And then I'll start linking back to the funding agencies that are appropriate for us, I think. Yeah.
And if you get, I realise that you are sometimes a bit of a one-man show at Johnsonville, but as you get that online and able to share it with your committee, you might be able to pull in people, and hopefully from Love Tennis we'll get a few volunteers that might have a skill set that, and that's the only way to do it. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you can get that stuff in place, so yeah, hand it over. Great.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah. So who else have we got?
Yep, I'll go next.
You're good.
Yep,
Thank you.
I like the idea of the spreadsheet too. And I'll probably adopt that. And I also will be referring to the toolkit on the website for more different funding options. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and you will enjoy the maintenance side of it. It'll give you some really good ideas when it comes to your court resurfacing, because that's really key. It gives great examples of when to do what and what you might think of when you're starting to think of court resurfacing. So I'll share that with you as well. Then I think we're just left with West Harbour. What are you guys thinking?
Thank you so much for all the information and explanation today. I had looked on the website that you showed me today, but I guess just too much information. It couldn't really make my mind as much. But after today, I felt like everything's become more makes sense and step by step. And what should I do to apply for the funding, include for all the funders' informations. And but one question that is, I had looked on website before. Most funders then ask for financial statement.
Yep.
But as our club hasn't, our head coach title hasn't started yet, only our business will be starting in September. So in that case, we don't really have anything to show on our bank statement for the financial or any record of the program, past program, because we're just about to start. In this case, is there anything I can do or explain to the funder when I'm applying for the fundings?
So are you applying as a coaching business or is that what West Harbour? So but you're attached to the tennis club, is that right?
Yeah, but for the applying, we were also thinking about the coaching. When you were asking about needs and wants for the funding, we weren't ready that much, but our club actually has 9 tennis courts, but we only have 4 courts has lights and 2 courts lights are broken. So we're thinking of applying for the fundings for coaching, but also for clubs needs because sorry.
So that's good. You but as a to be able to link that to your club as far as would be a lot easier than saying we're a tennis coaching business. Businesses don't really get funded as easily as sports organisations. So you'll get together with your club, talk to the committee or the governance, the operations people at your club to apply for programs for coaching, because easily you could apply to be able to go into schools to bring them back to your club, and you would then be the coaches to do that. But to start off with a coaching business, I think already you really need to link to your club. So have you had those conversations with your club?
Oh, not yet, actually.
Not yet. Good. Yeah. Okay, so those conversations, I'm really happy to help you there if you need help with that. Sounds like those 2 courts with the broken lights, they're a real need at the moment, and they should go on your plan somewhere, and along with your coaching program. And your camera could be a want further down the line, but get the people on your courts. And I don't know your situation, I'm just sort of imagining. But conversation really good to have with West End Tennis Club, because that goes hand in hand. You both are going to build the business of the club together.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. That was a today.
Good, and I will be back in contact with everyone honest to send you an example of what the work you need to do, and certainly if I can help with any of it individually, please let me know.
Thank you very much.
I think I've kept you long enough. I was trying to keep it to an hour. I think we're way over the hour, so thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks, Ellie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.